You're hanging out in the House of Sunny podcast, where it's always sunny, mostly because of your host, comedian and YouTuber, Sunny Loman. Want to know what Sunny and her friends are thinking about this week? Well, here she is, Sunny Loman.
Okay, hey, welcome everybody. Today we're going to talk about how much the founders risked to fight a revolution for their freedom. So get off the couch. And because it's 4th of July week, it's a special 4th of July episode where we scold you and make you feel guilty.
My remote control's out of batteries. That's my problem.
All right. I commented on that YouTube video. What do you mean? I'm doing stuff. Hey, I said something on Facebook yesterday.
I said I unliked it. I defriended someone.
Right. Hey, you can hear Doug there. Welcome, Doug. Hey, what's going on?
Oh, everything's going on. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. You already heard my story of the...
I did.
I recorded that, so maybe I'll just drop that in. I'll drop that in. You guys can hear about my morning. Okay, but first I want to let you know I am now set up on Subscribestar. If you enjoy the show, please head over there and throw down a few bucks. That's Subscribestar. Search for the House of Sunny page there. Also, you can subscribe to House of Sunny at BitChute now. I am now uploading everything there too, because who the hell knows what's going to happen, right?
Right. And I'm glad to see more people getting on those new platforms. It's great.
Yeah, I was listening to Styx this morning, and he was saying Trump needs to get on all these alternative platforms.
Yeah,
that would really help it out. Plus, it would make Apple kind of need to... Apple's been not allowing these alternative platforms to have apps, and of course, Google won't let them either. So the two companies that have all the phones and all the apps won't let BitChute or Gab have apps. So
isn't that amazing?
Yeah. So if Trump got on there, maybe that would change. I don't know. I think Gab has an app now. I'm not really sure what's going on with Gab. Anyway, I'm uploading everything at BitChute and YouTube, and I'm on Subscribestar for support. You can support the show, and yeah, let's build that back up. We miss our patrons. Because I've been doing all the editing. I don't want to do all the editing.
In case you haven't noticed.
Yeah, right. Okay, so we're going to talk about the founding of this country. And, the
racists, you mean?
The old race. Thanks, Nike. Jeez, what about that, huh? I think we all need to fly the old flag this 4th of July. I mean, do we really have to get out and assert that, it's okay to be fucking Americans? Hey, everybody, newsflash, there isn't a group or a country in the entire world that's innocent of slavery. Not one.
That's right.
So get the fuck over it. It fucking happened. It happened everywhere. It's part of world history. It's part of the history of humans. Get over it. You got to get over it.
And the West ended it.
And America is arguably, with England, I would say, the pinnacle of the West.
And it wasn't until, in many cases, the 20th century till slavery ended in Africa. In fact, it's still going on
over there, people. So if you really want to complain about something, complain about Libyans. I want to hear you complain about Libyans before you shit all over the American flag. Fuck you. All right.
Coming out swinging.
All right. I woke up this morning. Well, I woke up early so I could get ready and everything because I had a doctor appointment this morning, and my daughter had to be taken to a camp thing, a daycare camp thing.
Oh yeah, you're that guy, that whole issue.
Yeah. Fanny, our old nanny, came over to get her or whatever, but the point is that she woke up and was just bitchy. From the moment she opened her eyes, just pissed off and meh. I'm trying to get this child ready and me ready, and you know what I mean? It's one of those fucking days, and there's nothing I hate more than getting Lucia ready in the morning. I would do anything with my child but get her ready in the morning.
Wow.
I just hate it. I hate the whole, come on. Like, I fucking want to kill myself. There has to be a better way. Why is it so fucking hard? And then,
kids, you got to hound them.
Why? What are we doing? Like, I don't fucking attention. Care. Well, you don't need to be educated. You just can be a caveman.
The only thing
I'm going to give you
works
a stick and send you outside.
The only thing that I've ever found works to get them moving is threatening them with a consequence.
How about I lay candy out like in a path?
Get your shoes on. 10 minutes later.
Candy number 1. Get your shoes on.
They're like staring at the
candy,
wall.
Well, yes, exactly.
Laying on the ground.
So, but Lucia was worse than that this morning. She was like, "Don't touch me." And I don't want to cuddle. Don't touch me. And I'm just like really pissed off. And then finally Fanny got here. I'm like rushing around. I'm 15 minutes late. I get out the door. I get into the car. I turn it on. And the gas light is on. And it says you have 6 miles before you are going to run out of gas.
Oh.
So now I got to go fill the fucking tank. And then I get to my doctor appointment, and I'm wearing, I admit it, I'm not wearing the best dress that I own, but I'm wearing this cotton sundress I bought last year, I think at Target, on sale. It's definitely not the best looking dress, but it's lightweight cotton, and it's comfortable, and it has pockets, and so I just fucking wear it because I like it. But it's white with black polka dots. And the polka dots aren't clear circles. They're kind of blurry. And I get there and I'm sitting there.
Do you want to talk about this on the podcast?
I'm just going to tell you real quick. I'm sitting there and the physician's assistant comes in and says, "Oh, I like your dress. It looks like a Sharpie exploded on it." I'm like, if you were trying for a compliment, that actually wasn't one, but okay.
Awesome.
What? Oh my God. I'm just going to go home now and do my podcast.
Awesome. You look like a Sharpie exploded on you.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks. Oh, thank you. I did actually say thank you.
That's what I was going for.
It was one of those moments where I know she didn't mean to offend me. She meant to compliment me, but what she said was awful. And what do? You say thank you, like a dope. Oh, thanks.
You could have made fun of it.
I know I should have.
You should have just immediately been like, is that a compliment?
Yeah. I should have said my 4-year-old colored it. With a Sharpie. Thank you very much for making my day better. Usually...
You look like a uniform store exploded on you.
Well. All right. So what we wanted to say was that Doug gave me this article about what happened to the people who signed the Declaration of Independence. And I'm just going to read it. 5 signers were captured by the British as traitors and tortured before they died. So that was worth it. 12 had their homes ransacked and burned. 2 lost their sons serving in the Revolutionary Army. Another had 2 sons captured. 9 of the 56 fought and died from wounds or hardships during the Revolutionary War. So let's see, 24 of the signers were lawyers and jurists, 11 were merchants, 9 were farmers and large plantation owners. They were men of means, they were well educated. So they knew that they were going to commit treason, be in danger, maybe lose their all their wealth. And they had kids, they had families. A lot of times I think, maybe I should stop doing this because now I have a daughter and I need to protect her future and, maybe I should just go slink into anonymity and let the socialist revolution happen and just try to protect her as best I can. God, that sucks having those thoughts.
Yeah, that's horrible.
But
that's demoralizing.
Yeah, but these guys, they had families too.
And they were wealthy and comfortable.
Yeah.
They were fine.
Yeah, they were fine.
They had the best lives of anyone in the world.
I particularly think of George Washington because I've read his biography. And he was comfortable. He was like a man on the rise. And had he just kind of stayed the course, everything would have been really easy for him.
Oh, yeah.
Very comfortable
Absolutely.
life.
Absolutely. Great lives.
His biggest concern was should I order new dishes from England for my estate? That's kind of George Washington problems pre-revolution. All right. Carter Braxton of Virginia, a wealthy planter and trader, saw his ships swept from the seas by the British Navy. He sold his home and properties to pay his debts and died in rags. Thomas McKean was so hounded by the British that he was forced to move his family almost constantly. He served in the Congress without pay, and his family was kept in hiding. His possessions were taken from him, and poverty was what his reward was for that. He had nothing at the end of the war. Vandals or soldiers looted the properties of Dillery, Hall, Clymar, Walton, Gwinnett, Hayward, Rutledge, and Middleton. At the Battle of Yorktown, Thomas Nelson Jr. noted that the British General Cornwallis had taken over Nelson home for his headquarters. He quietly urged George Washington to open fire. The home was destroyed, and Nelson died bankrupt. Fun. It was fun being a revolutionary.
Yeah, the guy told Washington to destroy his own home.
Yeah. Francis Lewis had his home and properties destroyed. The enemy jailed his wife, and she died within a few months. I'm sure prisons back then were really comfortable with your civil rights protected at all times.
Hold on, I'm trying to lift my thumb to unlike something on Facebook. This is hard. Hold on.
John Hart was driven from his wife's bedside as she was dying. Their 13 children fled for their lives. His fields and his grist mill were laid to waste. For more than a year, he lived in the forests and caves, returning home to find his wife dead and his children gone, missing. A few weeks later, he died from just exhaustion and a broken heart. And I think that's true. You can die of a broken heart. I don't know if this guy did, but you can. All right, let's see. Norris and Livingston suffered similar fates. Such were the stories and sacrifices of the American Revolution. Yep. And we're all worried about my job, my Silicon Valley job. Can't lose my job.
Yeah.
Can't speak out.
Right. And really, in many ways, I mean, it's hard to put yourself at that time, but, being a subject of a king. But when you really just break down the level of freedom and, the amount of taxation that was going on, the level of freedom they had, you could argue we have less freedom now by far.
Yeah, you could. You could argue that.
Easily.
We're just so much more comfortable. I think, it happens slowly. You just get used to it, I guess. I don't know. Kind of weird.
Yeah.
And then also, I think we have a population that's less. I was listening to a Christopher Hitchens talk that you can Google this on, or search for it on YouTube. Christopher Hitchens was an expert on George Orwell. Did you know that?
Yeah, I've heard some of his stuff.
He was like a George Orwell scholar, and so he gave this talk about it, and that's actually a really good talk. There are a lot of gems in there, and this is. Christopher Hitchens considered himself, I think he was kind of socialist-ish.
Oh, yeah, very much so. He was very much a leftist.
And so was Orwell.
But an old school leftist.
Yeah, Anyway, he said that, totally against censorship. And where was I going with this? I can't even remember.
Orwell, Hitchens.
Yeah, but what was I saying before that? I was going to connect what he said to something. Forget it.
Let me help you.
What the heck were we just talking about? Oh, yeah. He said the danger is not, Orwell said this, you don't fight the enemy in the sense that you fight these people, this 8%, according to a poll, 8% of people in the United States are these kind of like real progressive, the people who are Ocasio-Cortez fans.
The radical
Only
left
8%.
type.
So it's not them you fight. It's the people who will obey. And so what you have to protect against is having a culture of people who will obey. Who will just obey this shit. And I think that gets into arguments that we've made about immigration and culture. And when you have too many people who are just kind of used to obeying, and that goes for like even the British.
Yes,
sorry
it
to
goes
say,
for everybody.
But everybody,
well, every country's like that. Every society's like that. Most people are in the middle that just do what they're told and sort of abide the rules, and and it's this radical element on the fringe that usually drives those policies, and everyone else just falls in line because they just don't want any trouble. They don't want conflict.
Too much trouble. Just leave me alone.
And it is. It's true.
So much trouble.
I mean, you wake up every day. I mean, right? What do you want to wake up every day and like get your gun and start shooting at people? I mean, no one wants to live like that.
Doug,
it's
I don't
much
think you have to get your gun and shoot at people. False alternative.
I don't.
We're not telling people to either stop making Facebook posts, get your gun, and start shooting people.
No, I mean, like metaphorically, man.
Okay, yeah, I know what you're saying.
Get up and like fighting constantly.
Even reading the news every day is like a hardship, right?
Today, yeah, absolutely.
The last week, for some reason, I've just been feeling super ragged from the news. Just kind of like, man, it's over. Black-pilled, It's not.
Yeah.
Some weeks I feel that way, some weeks I don't. But you have to pay attention. We're losing our freedoms really fast right now. Thanks, Obama.
Mm-hmm.
And Obama was a really bad president. A lot happened under him. I don't think we fully get it yet. We don't fully understand. But I can tell you that it just feels way different in this country after Obama than before Obama. I felt more unified as a country. There were definitely assholes who like to lecture me at work about environmentalism, but I never felt like I had to hide.
Well, when the left was in power, I think they wanted to maintain it, and so they kept a lid on their real aspirations. I was listening to a left-wing guy on television the other night speaking about this, and he was unintentionally really exposing the left by saying, once Trump came into power, Van Jones was saying this, actually.
Van Jones has been great on free speech. I mean, he's a communist.
But he was saying, because the point of the woman was saying, hey, is this really a winning ticket? This Democratic, in the wake of the Democratic debate, these people are claiming they're going to give free healthcare to immigrants and all these crazy radical policies that are not going to fly in the general election. And he pretty much said, well, since Trump got elected, the mask is off, in essence, that we were willing to kind of go step by step and, try and appeal to the middle and that kind of thing. But now that things have gotten so crazy, we're just sort of saying what we want. And
this is also why they need open immigration, because they need all these people to vote for them.
Yeah, because they're so crazy that they know that's the only way for them to gain power again.
And this is why 12 states are giving away driver's license to illegals now. 12. And then California, you get a driver's license, you automatically registered to vote, whether you're illegal or not. That was the next law they passed. First, they passed the driver's licenses. They said, it's not humane for people not to have a driver's license. Because you can't, be a human being without a driver's license in this country. It keeps people underground. It causes crime, blah, 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 All the reasonable explanations to convince whatever reasonable people are left that...
Yeah, well, if it's so bad, then leave. you're an illegal immigrant. Why did you come here then? Like, why should we bend over to accommodate people that are here illegally?
So they get their driver's licenses, and then the very next law they passed is that automatic registration for voting.
Exactly. And this is really what we're up against big picture, I think, is the electoral change, the demographic change that affects the electoral process state by state and in the national election, which is really what the left is after right now. I mean, they see the electoral map and they know what they need to do to swing it.
Yeah, there's a reason that it's third world immigration that they're for. It's not like they're opening up immigration from Canada. I don't, my Canadian friends who try to immigrate here have a heck of a time.
Oh yeah, no, if you come in legally, it's very difficult. It's very hard. If you're a company and you want to bring in a worker or something, and they're on an H-1B visa or whatever, that's all a hard, difficult process. It's hard to get a green card, but the people that they're allowing in are these streams of refugees that are granted temporary asylum, and then they disappear, and then they're given a driver's license, and then they're registered to vote. It's unbelievable.
The left, you can tell their motive when they're protesting the company that's sending furniture to the camps, to these detention centers. They don't.
Yeah, at first I thought those were people that were against immigrants. I thought they were like, we're not giving them furniture.
No, it's the pro-immigrant. No, they don't want them to have beds. And they just want to close down the centers because they don't want people detained. They want them let in. And then they're going to give them driver's license where they automatically register them to vote. And they're trying to ruin the Electoral College and get a popular vote result. I mean, it's so clear as day. Like, you guys don't see this shit? I know my listeners do. But it's serious.
Well, if they get Texas, our country's over.
They are going to get Texas. It's done. It's done. It is done. Ann Coulter, like her or not, she has a pretty good handle on the statistics and the figures, and she said, given how many children, the people below voting age, who are going to come of age, in the next 5 years, Texas is done already.
Well, and the big picture point, what we're fighting is I think there's two things. It's this electoral shift, which I think eventually is going to lead to legislation or a president nominating a Supreme Court judge that goes along with the leftist version of free speech, which is, we love free speech, except the kind of speech that's important, where you disagree with people,
especially the government. Yeah,
we're fine if you talk about the weather or do you talk about how great the government is, but if you offend someone, that's where we draw. So seriously, that's where they're going. That's where this whole thing is headed. Is the left, leftist president that starts nominating Supreme Court justices. And, and how does that happen? Well, the electoral shift in the country because they can't get the votes that they need from Americans. So they're importing voters.
And what drives me crazy, and I still don't fully understand this, why the right is so weak. Let's say the left gets in a president who picks a judge who's just going to allow open borders and hate speech laws and anti-Second Amendment laws and just, everything. Then the Senate will approve it. Will approve that person. A Republican Senate would approve it. Oh, well, we have to let the Democrat president have his pick.
Yeah. But when the Republicans nominate a milquetoast conservative like Kavanaugh, we practically had a civil war.
I almost think, looking back at that the right was in favor of what was happening to Kavanaugh because it took all of the attention. I remember at the time thinking, we're not even talking about this guy's qualifications. Like, nobody's saying, is this guy, do we really want this guy? On the right.
Yeah.
There was no discussion. It got all of us behind this guy, defending this guy, when maybe he wasn't really the right guy. Maybe Amy Barrett would have been a better pick. Because he turned out to be kind of a Roberts now. And we knew that actually before going in. I remember there were some articles that were saying, hey, this guy's not really that good. Drowned out in all the...
Well, I remember people explicitly saying, this guy isn't that good, but now we have to back him because...
Now we have to back him.
Because, to give into this would be a total miscarriage of justice. So.
And they were right. Like, they were right. We couldn't let that method of interrogating a justice stand. However, we never actually got to consider the merits of this guy from our perspective, from the perspective of the right. And that was a really successful, they quote unquote lost, but they won, didn't they? I think they knew what they were doing.
They lost the battle and won the war.
They knew exactly what they were doing. They didn't plan to win that battle. So
well, that gets us into this. Do you want to talk about that big tech thing?
Yeah, all right. So the other thing that we were going to talk, this is getting away from the 4th of July special. Before we do that, I just want to say, Ayn Rand said that the American culture, one of the things that defined it was disobedience. And so getting into, pulling in that Orwell quote and the Ayn Rand quote, like our culture really is important. It really is important for freedom, for keeping our freedoms. And I just encourage everybody needs to get a little more disobedient. And I don't understand these calls for civility I sometimes share Kurt Schlichter articles and people are like, oh, I hate that guy. He's such an asshole. Yeah, good.
No, he's fantastic.
He's wonderful.
He's exactly what we need.
Need a million more like him. And we'd have no problems.
Right. How could anyone object to that? I mean, maybe it's because we love sarcasm.
His language is very, there's that. He's really funny. But he's insulting and his language is really rough. And he's like, no, fuck you. Because, you want student loan reparations, or not reparations, but... what do you call it?
Student loan forgiveness.
Student loan forgiveness? How about no?
Yeah.
How about fuck you?
Yeah.
How about you pay your own loans? That's the end of the article.
Exactly. Exactly.
Enough said.
And look at what Kurt Schlichter, Ann Coulter, people like Jordan Peterson or Ben Shapiro. I mean, these are the people that resonate because they just speak truth in a very clear and often very funny and entertaining style. I don't see how, when you think about the Tea Party and, going back to the founders and the tar and feathering,
right,
of the loyalists and the kind of rabble rousing that was going on at that time, they were like what the left is now. We see what's going on with Antifa and the level of violence that they're escalating to. I mean, I think we're going to have to really...
Well, the thing with Antifa is interesting because if you saw the playbook in New York, Antifa's very active there, and it kind of caused a reaction group called the Proud Boys. No, the Proud Boys are not skinhead white supremacists, which is what the propaganda is, but that's not what they are, what they were. I don't really think they exist anymore. Not that maybe some of them were, but that's not what the Proud Boys were. They were just a group that were determined they were tough guys. They were going to fight back if anyone, they were going to protect Republican, conservative people and talks and protests. They were willing to fight back. And so they did. They fought back in a couple of instances, and they were now arrested, and they're being charged with felony crimes, and it's pretty serious. So that's the playbook. I mean, you have Antifa in Portland doing this. If the right comes out next time armed and ready to fight back, it's the right that will go to jail, not the left. They're waiting for the right to get violent, and then they'll slam down on them. And the problem is our side is so wussy. The second, just look at Charleston. One kind of nervous dude in a car with crowds all around him runs over something. I'm not saying it's right. I actually don't really understand what happened there because I didn't look into the facts and I don't trust the newspapers. But someone died. He hit them with his car, And that's horrible. We hear more about that every fucking day than we do about what Antifa does on a regular basis.
Yeah. Like almost beating Andy Ngo to death.
His brain was bleeding, you guys. He was in the hospital overnight. Yeah. You don't get admitted to the hospital for no reason.
Yeah, that was serious stuff. I mean, this is seriously getting violent.
Another guy was hit with a crowbar. And his head was all in the head. Another guy needed, dozens of stitches in his head. Did you see that? It wasn't just Andy Ngo. It was like a bunch of dudes got beat up. And, there's no outrage. There's no, hey, Trump, what's your comment about that? And if he said, oh, they're good people on both sides, their heads wouldn't explode. They'd be like, yeah, that's right. Those Antifa, there's some really good people in Antifa. They're just nice boys who want to make a better world. They're just really worried about Nazis.
Yeah, I literally had someone I know tell me, what? You're worried because they're against fascism? Ha ha ha. Like he was serious.
Yeah, I know.
And I said, you know what that's like? That's like me starting a group called Anti-Ped, where the explicit purpose is we're against pedophiles. And so we go out in the streets and we beat people up. We
just randomly beat people up, call them pedophiles.
We hit, and if they disagree or anyone disagrees with us or objects to our methods, we say, well, you must be for pedophiles. That's exactly what they're doing.
It's they're
stupid. Literally fascist.
Seriously.
It's so dumb.
How many brain cells do you not have to look at Antifa and think there's anything good there? They're so explicitly evil. So, anyway, the right can't fight back because we don't have enough people in power that will back us up. Those guys in New York, they might go to prison. They're being charged with felonies and nobody's doing anything. Will Trump pardon them? It's not a federal crime, I guess, so he can't. I don't know. If the right doesn't rise up and stop this shit, and the only way to stop Antifa is to crush them. You don't have the luxury of being nice to these boys.
Right. But how does that happen without like a civil war type fight where you literally, because they're not going away.
Voting, I guess. I mean, we just need to, the Republicans we need to have in office have to be hardliners. And for some reason that really scares people. Like, we don't want a strong right. Under any circumstances, we don't want any tough guys on the right. That's why Schlichter is an asshole, but Antifa is fine.
It almost seems like you need the left to turn on Antifa. You need enough moderation on the left for them to start distancing themselves like they do at times, like the mainstream Democrat types who disavow Antifa and say they're bad guys. But you never see that. You never hear that. I mean, it's sort of like Muslims with respect to radical Islam. Like where are these so-called moderates that disavow this violent fringe?
Well, it's because if you're a moderate Muslim and you disavow the fringe, they will kill you.
Right.
So it's kind of the same. I mean, if you go against Antifa, they'll come after you. And they're getting more and more powerful. They can shut down comedy shows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They shut down private speaking events all the time. Not university, but private speaking events. People who are Republicans can't even get venues because they're so terrified of getting vandalized.
Right.
So
and that happened.
They've succeeded in silencing people.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's happening everywhere.
So that's what's going on in the world, and yet people are just going about their daily lives. And I think they don't know what to do, but you've got to I think the thing to do is we have to start embracing there's like a false alternative out there that we either have a socialist, we let these socialist freaks, communist, Marxist freaks slowly crush us and stifle every last freedom that we have. We allow that to happen by being nice to them. Or we have Nazis and strong totalitarian religious leaders. That's like the false alternative. So we can't have tough, freedom-loving, strong men. Like, strong men in general are scary to people.
Well, and that stand up for our rights in the correct way, in the proper way.
And that might be with a fist.
Yeah, well, at times it has to be, in the cases of where violence is breaking out, you need the police to go and crack down on these people. The fact that
the right disavowed Proud Boys, I mean, that to me is an example that there's no way we can fight back with the current mentality in the culture. Because the Proud Boys are not white supremacists. They're mixed. They're full of all kinds of races. There might be some people in there who are, but that's irrelevant. Their whole purpose was to be bodyguards.
Yeah.
And they never initiated force. They only fought back. They are being crushed. Gavin McInnes had to step down as he's the head, I guess, because they've crushed Gavin McInnes. I mean, and the right just stands back and lets it happen. There is nobody standing up and going, hey, that's not fair, because they don't want to be associated with the Proud Boys because they've been labeled white supremacists.
Right.
So
that's all
they
have
let
to
that
do.
label just terrify them, and I'm sorry, okay, I won't. I'm not gonna like them. I can't support them because I'm so afraid to be called a white supremacist, even though I'm black.
Right. Right.
And black people like Candace Owens are called white supremacists. It's so fucking funny.
Yeah, or Ben Shapiro's called a Nazi.
So everybody's just got to be here's what you have to do if you're on the right. Here's my advice. Embrace the label. Embrace, I'm a racist, xenophobic, white supremacist. Say that to yourself in the mirror every morning. It's an affirmation.
Yeah.
Because
if that's what they're going to call you, they're going to call you that anyways.
They're going to call you that no matter what. If you speak out, that is the label they're going to attach to you. And I've certainly been called that. I've been called, especially that hijab video. Oh my God. I'm in the group of my high school class, for reunions and stuff like that. I got attacked in there one day in the Facebook group. And they went after me, called me all kinds of names, just like that, And nobody came to my defense, not a single person. So you just have to be okay with it because it's not true. You have a right to defend yourself. They're going to call you those names, and you're going to have to be all right with it. You're going to have to be okay with it.
Call them pedophiles.
Yeah, just call them pedophiles. That's Doug's brilliant idea. What are you, a pedophile? What are you talking about?
Yeah, if you're going to mislabel me and mischaracterize my position, try and smear me, I'll smear you worse.
Right. In fact, I believe in that. The first time you get smeared, just immediately go on the offensive and call them a pedophile. Yeah, but the point is you have to not be afraid to be called a racist, xenophobic, white supremacist. You have to be okay with that, even if it's not true.
And I think we're starting to see that, to tell you the truth. I think the charge has become almost so ridiculous and so diluted through misuse, like the Nazi label.
Yeah.
I mean, it's become almost it's almost become a cartoonish joke now when someone says Nazi. It doesn't really even mean anything anymore. And I think most people are onto that. But what I wanted to say, Sonny, is I think what's one of the things that's really hampering the right are, you mentioned this sort of straw man idea before. And I think we see this, especially, when we see these arguments about the big tech situation and any issue that's out there where someone creates a straw man, or a false alternative, well, either we sit there and do nothing, or we need to have antitrust regulation, or we need, the government to take over the internet or something like that. And those are the only two choices that are available to us. And that's such a false alternative.
Exactly.
You can, when you look tactically at the situation and you think big picture, what are we worried about? I'm worried about Supreme Court justices negating free speech, because that's the end of the country when that happens. Because I think right now, you're still protected. You could, any kind of speech is still protected in this country. We're really the only country left.
Yeah, because
but
ultimately
you
can go all the way to the Supreme Court and win.
You will win right now. Even with the current crop of liberal justices, they're still old school free speech people. But if we get the AOC, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders types nominating younger justices, that have grown out of the current academic environment, they're going to be literally against free speech, and they're going to overturn the First Amendment. That's on the horizon. And so that worries me. And that, how is that achieved? It's
and
achieved
the Second Amendment, by the way. Both of the first and second at the same time.
Absolutely. And so, when you look at this tactically and you say, well, how do we defeat the left while not harming our own long-term interests? Because really that's the battle. When I hear right-wing people talking about, like, what do we do about this? What do we do about that? They're more worried about granting the government some sort of precedent or some power that in the future could be used against us. And that's a legitimate concern. If you right now favor antitrust to go after big tech, in the long run, that, as soon as someone else is in power, that could be used against you. Or, if we don't want to have some congressional tribunal determining what's hate speech or not on the internet, right? So I understand that concern, but that's a false alternative. There's ways to fight back against this while still stressing and preserving our own long-term values. And, for example, this is a fraud. I mean, the way big tech has been acting in terms of having a neutral platform and getting Section 230 immunity, and then turning around and changing terms of service, is really amounts to a complete and total fraud.
It's a bait and switch.
Now,
I mean, they've gotten a lot of people to build their businesses, invest a lot of time and money into those businesses. And you talk about like not using the antitrust, and yet here's when I said, okay, I'm done. Like, all bets are off, shoot them with every gun. When I realized the banks were involved.
Yes.
Because, I'd already heard some rumblings and could see sort of this soft fascism with the tech censorship. You could hear Congress people calling on using this sort of Russian interference BS as cover, calling on Facebook and others to deal with misinformation, and that's when they crushed Breitbart, and that's what, it was obvious that they were using this to just crush right-wing news sources and to shadow ban right-wing news and kill off a lot of the right-wing newspapers. Well, okay, you have somebody like Facebook, a competitor comes up like Instagram, they buy it. They have Messenger, a competitor comes up like WhatsApp, they buy it. So which, in and of itself isn't so horrible, but they are basically so big that they can buy up all the competition. But in addition to that, they have laws. This 230 business is a law passed for them, specifically to protect them. And then they're violating those terms. And that's crony capitalism, first of all, that law. I mean, it's not necessarily, because I think it was passed in order to create to allow for more speech and open speech and people taking risks and things like that, and these platforms allowing people to say whatever they wanted to say. So that was a good thing. But, they don't care about it. They're not acting on that. And, I think it's a bait and switch. And it's not
Well,
right. If you
and-
step back and you just look, is that just? Is that justice? Is that moral? Is that ethical? It's not right what they're doing and what they've done to people the last couple of years.
Yeah, they've had this massive benefit conferred upon them by being treated as neutral platforms. They've lured millions and millions of customers in, and it's, billions of dollars of market cap for their shareholders.
When Patreon
And then-
took down Subscribestar and another Patreon competitor almost overnight using PayPal and Stripe and MasterCard, like that's when I was like, it's done. I'm done. These companies
Well, right,
are
'cause
all
the banks are
colluding,
involved now.
Patreon, Apple, Google, Facebook, Twitter, and they've admitted as much, that they get together and they decide who can be on the platforms and who can't, who to deplatform, who not to. They're making these decisions together. And Apple and Google are not approving apps. They're keeping down the competition for their friends, who are their ideological business partners. And this is all under that is all like, you could lose your banking. You compete with Facebook, you could lose your personal banks. You
Right.
might, Citibank will close your personal accounts. I think Laura Loomer, that happened to her.
So, and then that's, same with MasterCard.
And banks are run by the government, people. They're fascist
Yeah, they're
entities,
completely
100%
regulated.
fascist entities. So I'm sorry, but Google should lose YouTube. Facebook should lose Instagram and WhatsApp. PayPal needs to be taken to court for deplatforming competitors. I don't know. It's just like the whole thing is wrong.
No, but what I'm saying is, you can point this out. You can go after these I think particularly focusing on legal issues that emphasize and stress our own values, like fraud, and also expose the level of cronyism. When there's cronyism and fascism, and we have a semi-fascist situation here where the government is threatening banks, like they did under the Obama administration for banking with, politically unfashionable companies. We have to have in law protections against that. It's not wrong. In other words, when you have a fascist situation and you have the government with arbitrary power, it's completely reasonable to insist on laws that protect your freedom and your rights to deal in a fascist situation. Now, if we had a completely laissez-faire free market, that's a different situation. That's not what we have. We have a completely regulated banking system, and this is very dangerous. If you get to the point where banks aren't going to allow conservatives,
Right.
You can't have a bank if you don't have we could see that literally.
We are
that's
getting
on the
to that
horizon.
point. It's not even like, are we at that point? There are companies, gun manufacturers, who've lost their banks because, in an effort to crush guns, basically through a back door.
Exactly.
Porn, who cares? But porn have lost their banks.
Well, that's where it starts.
Yeah,
it starts with
the
really
fringe,
unfashionable people.
Then they get the power,
and then it starts
and then they
moving
move
towards the center.
Yeah, they move the bar.
They move the bar, and so
We talk too much.
you can't. Yeah, you can't. But the point is to sit back and say there's nothing what we can do because private property is such a massive context drop, and
It's cowardice to me. Okay, if you're a libertarian and you're an anarchist, fine, that's your position, go away. But a lot of freedom lovers acknowledge limited government as the proper social system. If you're into capitalism, that's what you're advocating. So you're not advocating no law against private companies. You're not at, a full separation between economics and state. You hear a lot of people say. But that doesn't mean that you can commit fraud, and it doesn't mean you can cheat people and do a bait and switch, and it doesn't mean you can collude with fascist entities like banks to take down your competitors. That's what's happening.
Right.
So here's what I think. It's like there's not only are they putting out this false alternative, especially the freedom lovers, the libertarian types, the false alternative, but also conservatives do this. Either you're a sap and you just let it do it and you go, no, you can't do that. Hey, that's not fair. That's like the most you're willing to do. Or you're going to cause a totalitarian dictatorship yourself, because what you're advocating is like for the government to do something or, whatever. So you're wrong to do that, because that's going to, and there is a risk in that. Like, I get what they're saying, but they don't offer the freedom alternative.
Well, no. And what I'm saying is there are measures you can take, taking into account the full circumstance here where we have semi-fascism already, and you can take actions, I think, that stress our own values, like anti-fraud and good faith dealing. If for example, let's say you sign one of the ads pointed this out to me as he was an attorney. Let's say you have a contract with someone and, they're entitled to a bonus on January 1st. And, on December 31st, the employer fires them, in order to get around the bonus. Like, they technically might have the right to do that. But in a court of law, that's bad faith dealing. There's certain implications of, like, there's certain good faith implications. It's called good faith dealing or whatever it is in contract law, where there's just certain things you can't do that violate sort of the spirit of the agreement. And, here in these cases too, I mean, this is that writ large. I mean, you have these companies luring these people in and then changing the terms. And so I think what they've done is, I think, not only illegal, like by the letter of the law in terms of, the way they violate neutrality, and you could even bring in the campaign finance laws, but it's also just pure fraud. It's pure fraud. It's bait and switch. It's dishonest business practice. And then, on top of all of this, their whole goal is to shut down conservatives, to turn elections, to change the outcome of elections in a way that's going to only further their own power.
Yeah, and it's permanent.
And given the government's current power that it has, the current arbitrary power of the government, the more people they have on their side in Congress, in the executive branch, in the court system, it's only going to further consolidate their own cronyism and their ability to keep people out and to dominate those markets with impunity, like illegally dominate those markets with impunity, to cut out banking for conservatives and whatnot, to nominate judges that eventually might explicitly overthrow free speech. I mean, we are in a big picture battle here, and we've got to pick. I agree. Don't pick a fight and advocate something where you win a battle but we lose the war, just for a short-term gain. But think big picture about how do we defeat this morally and politically.
How can we be pro-freedom and still be tough? That is, being pro-freedom isn't weak. And that is what I feel like the association is today. We can't have a strong man, because strong man means dictatorship. How about a strong freedom lover who uses
a strong
the
advocate
laws
of rights
that are on the books to advocate? Like, here's an example of what I feel like is a really big mistake that happened this week. Trump did some executive order for price transparency in hospitals and with doctors where he could, which is where they take Medicare and Medicaid, right? So now he's saying, if you take Medicaid, Medicare, you need to publish your prices to the public. So this is like a transparency executive order. And this will lead to consumers like you and me knowing what things cost when you are buying medical care, and when you have a situation where at one hospital a blood test is $19, at another one is $520. If you can see this, you might pick the cheaper one. We're all paying these outrageous premiums and all these incredibly high costs, and then people like me who are sick, the insurance companies have just stopped paying for medicine. They've literally stopped paying for medicine. At my level of medicine, they don't pay. They owe it to me, but they don't pay anyway. They don't care. Sue me, they say. It'll take you 5 years, and you'll be dead by then anyway. So you're just going to move on and take some other drug because we're not going to pay for this. Or you're going to die in the meantime. That's literally what they're doing. And I'm not alone in this happening to me. I see it on all the forums online, the health forums and stuff that I'm on. Everybody's talking about it. My doctor is talking about it to me explicitly. It's happening, and it's happening because the costs are really out of control. The system is broken. Nobody knows what anybody's paying for anything. If you try to pay cash, good luck. You call and you say, okay, I need to pay cash for this. This just happened to my friend. She had a miscarriage, but the baby didn't come out. But it was dead inside her. And she had to get technically an abortion, like a DNC or whatever. And she didn't have insurance. She had to call around and pay cash. And she could not get a price. She couldn't get a price.
No, you can't. They purposely, I was listening to a podcast this week. We should talk about this on another podcast in depth, but there's a thing called the Free Market Medical Association. You should look up. But anyways, what the guy was saying was they don't have a price because the way it works is they look at your situation and your insurance, and then they try and extract
whatever
as much money as they can under those
Right.
terms. And both sides oftentimes are colluding with one another, the insurance company and the hospital, because something might cost $3,000 and the price is the price they want is $20,000. So the insurance company will say, "Oh, we got it to $8,000." And so, they make it sound to the employer, to the insured, that they've saved you a lot of money when they really haven't, when there's someone else's.
There was a medical journal or a journalist who decided she was going to find out, she had a personal thing where it happened like that, and she was going to find out what something cost, what a procedure cost in like a variety of places. And she did everything she could. She's a journalist. She couldn't find the answer. So she decided to go the other way. She reached out to a big database of women, and she asked them, the women who'd had a mammogram, how much did you pay? Pull out your bill and see how much was paid for your mammogram in the town of Philadelphia or wherever it was that she was doing this research. She managed to get a list of people who'd had mammograms, and she pulled them in and asked them, and she couldn't believe the response was huge. First of all, like a huge percentage of people actually sent her their price. But that's how she was able to even get the data, to do a comparison and find out that everybody was paying a wildly different price from even the same place.
Right. And there's a place, this guy was talking about that, and he was saying that what they do is they have a service where you can actually price different services through this Oklahoma Surgery Center, through this direct primary care thing. And so you can use that price to leverage hospitals, because every price, like you could have he said that there was one case where the price they were quoted for a surgery was $40,000, and the real price that they were offering was $4,000.
That's insane. So this is what...
And if you're not paying for it, you don't care, right? So the whole system is
so
broken.
So yes, it's an executive order, okay? It's an executive order. And everyone's like, oh, an executive order, Trump's a dictator. For price...
The whole system is socialized.
For price transparency, folks. Like that, you have to look at what it's for. It's not... He's not saying, let's hide the prices from the public. He's saying, I want people to have more information. More information leads to more freedom.
And more outrage.
That's exactly right. More outrage, which will lead to more freedom.
And you know what? People might, if you wanted to argue, hey, if he does this, it's useless because they're just going to game the pricing, that they output because they're already in control of it. That's a totally different argument. The argument I was hearing is like, this is somehow in principle wrong.
It's in principle wrong because we're telling companies what they have to do, and it's a private company and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, God. You guys...
The whole system is essentially a socialized system. Right. And so any movement towards more freedom and more transparency in any small, tiny way is good.
Yeah, so my point is, yes, he used an executive order. That doesn't mean he's being tyrannical. Look at what he's ordering and in what context. So the right needs to stop. They need to put on their big boy pants and stop being like, our only option is to just sit here and let it all fucking go away.
Right. They've got to
We
stop.
have got to stop.
Contextually.
Oh no, an executive order, and it's a private business telling private hospitals that they have to print their prices. That's illegal. They're wrong. That's immoral. No, it fucking is not.
Not at all. I mean, these are not private
And
businesses.
we want more of that.
A
I want to know about the collusion. I would love to see an antitrust trial just to have discovery, to find out what these guys are saying to each other. You know?
Right.
Anyway, I just, you guys have got to get big picture about this, because we have to have toughness. The thing I like about Trump, and I actually this was the only thing I liked about him in the primary. I hated everything else about him, and I've changed my mind on that since he's taken office. But it was that he culturally was moving the bar from weak to tough. So even if I didn't particularly like his policies, I liked his toughness. I liked his straight talking. I'm so sick of all this over-rehearsed, like the Ted Cruz kind of over. I love Ted Cruz, by the way. He was my guy. But man, the reason he lost is because he's fake. Everything comes out of his mouth
comes off as fake.
is
Very
predetermined, scripted, rehearsed. He's Hillary Clinton on the other side. He's stiff and fake. And I don't think in his heart he is. I think he's actually, a genuine freedom lover. But based on his actions and how he votes and the kind of bills he puts up, like I really believe in him as a politician. Trump was just totally off script, just saying whatever. And while that may drive me crazy sometimes, I appreciate it overall, because I think it opens the door for people like Ted Cruz to be more real. People who really do love freedom. But what freedom lovers have to do is stop attacking the right when they do anything tough. So when the Proud Boys come out and start fighting against Antifa by being bodyguards and they throw a few punches, you need to back them up, even if they call you a racist. You need to back them up. You need to get tough. When Trump does an executive order for transparency in prices, you need to say, good. We need transparency in prices so people know that this thing is so messed up, and they'll agitate for change.
Yeah, you have to focus on winning the war in a tactically, and keep your long-term interest in mind, and realize this current circumstance that what we're fighting against. We do not have a free country right now. We have a mixed economy with a massive amount of government power. The left is on the rise. They are gaining steam. They've taken over the universities. They are
media, Hollywood, universities, everything. The internet is next.
They're quickly moving towards, shifting the demographics electorally so that they can win national elections and consolidate even more power. So, if we need something like, in law, a kind of Bill of Rights, on the internet that just protects it, I'm all for it.
Here's how the Democrats take power.
Whatever.
And once they do, it's permanent, meaning you will never be able to vote your way out of it again.
It's like being in Chicago.
You would have to fight your way out, and that is demographically and by eliminating free speech in the Second Amendment. And then you will permanently be living in a socialist, tyrannical society that will just get worse and worse and worse every year. So that's what's happening. Oh my God, we're so depressing. Anyway,
Happy Fourth.
Mostly what I want to do is motivate you guys. I know a lot of my listeners are tough people, and you are the ones who are saying, you're more the kind of like down to earth, rational type of conservative who's saying we have a right to fight. And I'm speaking, I guess, to the other ones, or I'm giving you some intellectual ammunition when you hear from the right, oh, it's a private company, and oh, it's an executive order, it's tyranny. It's like you really have to step back and see what it is that we're fighting. We have to get tough. And if freedom lovers don't provide a solution to these very real problems, then a strong right will. And by a strong right, I mean the tyrannical right. If you don't give them a solution, they're going to find somebody who will help them. Because this group of people is not going to go down and just lay over and be taken over. They're going to go, if you won't help them, they're going to go find someone who will. And who will be willing to do that? It'll be more like a Mussolini type of guy.
Yeah, and that's the kind of milquetoast garbage we're getting from a lot of people, so-called thought leaders on the right, are these like really weak, cowardly, unthoughtful, sort of rationalistic proclamations about private property, not thinking contextually, not thinking big picture, not thinking tactically, not seeing, what the current circumstance is and like what we're facing, and not being willing to think about ways to fight back that do promote our values and at the same time give moral support and some political momentum to people that we're fighting against. And that is the key. These are the people that we need and we should be looking to, that offer solutions and practical solutions right now to try and beat this back. Otherwise, like you said, it's just going to get worse. And if we lose free speech and the Second Amendment, the country's over at that point. I mean, good luck.
Okay. And on that note, we're going to end the show. No, we're not going to end the show.
Well, and to tie back to the founders, that's what they were facing too, right? And they had a better situation. These were a bunch of rich guys. This wasn't a bunch of destitute people. These were like rich. These were the best people in society that stood up and said,
they were a lot freer.
We'd rather lose everything.
They were a lot freer than you and me. And they fought and they risked everything. And they did things that weren't like tarring and feathering. It wasn't completely lawful. But big picture, I mean, and yes, just like the French Revolution, we could have descended into dictatorship. In fact, if it wasn't for George Washington, we might have, if he hadn't said, no, I'm not going to be king. And I don't think, I'm not really sure that would have happened because a lot of the founders would have been opposed to that. I can't even imagine what John Adams and Jefferson would have done if George Washington had become king. I don't think they were for that. But the point is that we got, we had good men. We had good men at the end there too, saying, this is what we're going to create going forward, the best of our ability. And so that's what we need. We need freedom lovers to stop putting us down when we fight. They need to fight with us and help us create a better society. And people who are sitting around at your jobs and just arguing on Facebook, I don't know what to tell you. I think you got to find a better way to fight. Because it's not enough, it's just not enough. And if the Democrats ever take control again, I think we're doomed. Because their gloves are off and they don't care anymore. If Elizabeth Warren becomes president, even with a Republican Congress, it's done. Because Congress is kind of like pointless.
Yeah, they don't do anything.
I mean, unless you vote in a bunch of tough guys to get in there and just say, no fucking way, you're not passing anything. And not care being called xenophobes, racist, and, find those guys. Find the guys who don't care if you call them names, the way Trump doesn't care.
And if our allies dump tea in the water to protest taxation and tyranny, don't say, but the private property, you can't dump the tea, that's stealing.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
Yeah, freedom lovers need to come up with a solution to these very real problems instead of saying, you can't fight. You can't fight. They have the right to do that. No, they don't. They're going to crush us. And on that note, I want to just mention that we do have a future show coming up. This issue of tech censorship is near and dear to our heart because we face it. I know that I've been shadow banned on Facebook, and I'm expecting at some point, I've already been demonetized on YouTube. That happened a while ago. I might lose my channel if somebody starts reporting the hijab episode or whatever. I mean, all those episodes that I did before, they violate the current rules. And yet somehow my channel is still there. I don't know how long it'll be. So go subscribe to me on BitChute. You can also send me your email. If you go to houseofsunny.tv, there's a place for you to sort of give me your email. I don't send anything out right now, but if I have your email, I certainly, at some point I might need to do that. I probably need to start working on that because everybody else I know is developing a database. But go find me on BitChute. Subscribe to me on Subscribestar. I'll get your email that way. And, that'll help me keep in touch with you. But this is a near and dear to my heart issue. And we've decided that we're going to, we did an objectivist leadership takedown video a few weeks ago that was pretty popular. I got a lot of really positive feedback on that. And we got a lot of views, frankly. I think people were hungry for hearing some criticism of what should be people who are on our side actually not on our side. I'm disappointed in Yaron Brook's stance on immigration. But also, I'm disappointed in his stance on tech censorship. And Dave Rubin did a panel at the Objectivist Summer Conference with Yaron Brook and Greg Salmieri, two Ayn Rand Institute intellectuals. And we are going to kind of not do a takedown, but we're going to play some of that video and discuss the issue in the context of what they also said. And some of that we've covered already here. I haven't actually watched the panel myself, but Doug has said this would be a good thing for us to kind of go over, and it would be a good way for us to talk about this issue more in depth. So that's in a show coming up. We're going to do a tech censorship show, kind of taking Dave Rubin's questions, actually, and some of the answers from Yaron Brook and Greg Salmieri from the Ayn Rand Institute. And kind of, this to me is like the critical issue. How do freedom lovers fight tech censorship? And I'll tell you right now, the way to do it is not to say, it's not censorship, only a government can censor. I can just hear the people out there going, it's not censorship. Okay, use a different word. But that's what we're going to talk about, is what the tech companies are doing to people on the right and to those businesses. And not just people on the right, actually. They're censoring a lot of moderates and a lot of people who are center left. Like it's gone full SJW at this point. And I follow a guy, Stixenheimer, 666. That's his YouTube channel. And he says It's all about the money. And he's got an interesting take on that too. So it's all crony capitalism is what he thinks. So, all right, that's it for the show today. Hey, everybody, happy Independence Day. Think about what you can do for the next year to promote independence in your country. And I'm really, I'm so proud to be an American. And I like Americans. And I'm really looking forward to my parade. My daughter's in the parade.
Oh,
yeah, she's
right.
on one of the floats. I won't say which
you
one.
got candy?
You're gonna throw out candy, and she's super excited. So she's gonna be in the parade, and I'm gonna be there, waving my flag.
Beautiful.
All right.
Do it.
Oh, I should say too, there's not going to be a show next week because I'm going to be out of town for part of it. Also, I don't have a nanny next week, so full-time childcare, and that's always a little hectic for me. So, and that means we'll see you in 2 weeks, everybody. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the House of Sunny podcast. Go check out Sunny on YouTube at her channel, House of Sunny. Everything Sunny does is fan-funded, and because she's likely to get kicked off and demonetized on every platform at some point, please support her over at
Subscribestar.com/House
of Sunny. Become one of Sunny's elite squad and have access to behind-the-scenes footage, t-shirts, special events, and more.